This video series will explain how two forms of the Spanish past tense, the preterite and the imperfect, are used to construct events differently. The preterite and the imperfect are not different tenses. A tense locates an event in time relative to some point. So past tense is some time before the present moment. Both preterite and imperfect are past tense forms. One's not more past or less past than the other. The difference in preterite and imperfect is all about how you choose to describe or view a particular event. We'll call this difference one of viewpoint aspect. This video will explain viewpoint aspect, and the next videos will give lots of examples showing how Spanish preterite and imperfect communicate differences in viewpoint aspect. Viewpoint aspect exists in English too, so you probably have some intuition about it already. For instance, if I said, "We went to the library," you would form a picture in your mind that goes something like this. But if I said, "We were going to the library," you might form a picture in your mind more like this. Maybe you state it this way because the action was interrupted, and so you're explaining that we were going to the library, but then we realized it was closed. Or maybe someone asked you, "What were you doing this morning when I saw you walking across campus?" And you said, "My friends and I were going to the library." So what's the difference between went and were going? The action as it happened in the real world is the same. But as I talk about that past action, went and were going express two different ways of viewing the action, or two different viewpoints. When I say we went, I'm just presenting the action as having occurred, and then moving on to say something else next. I'm not envisioning the middle stages of going to the library. To show this kind of viewpoint, I'll put a frame around we went. On the other hand, when I say we were going, I'm envisioning the middle stages of going to the library. To show that kind of viewpoint, I'll zoom in to those middle stages and then fade out. In Spanish, the preterite and imperfect are past tense forms that differ in their viewpoint. The preterite does not depict the middle stages of events, so we'll represent it with frames around events. This is the way of viewing events as bounded. The imperfect, on the other hand, depicts the middle stages of events, which is a way of viewing events as unbounded. So it might seem simple, right? Just translate went to preterite and were going to imperfect. Well, it's not so simple, unfortunately. For verbs that express activities, translation into English can work, like the going to the library example. But you have to make the preterite and imperfect distinction for every single past tense Spanish verb, even if English doesn't, like with verbs that describe states. For instance, to express we were there in Spanish with the state verb to be, or estar, I have to choose between the preterite form, estuvimos allí, and the imperfect form, estábamos allí. I could use either, depending on the viewpoint I wish to express. I'd probably never say we were being there in English, so translation won't help me choose between estuvimos and estábamos. I have to consider whether I'm thinking about the event as bounded or unbounded. Exactly the same difference we saw between we went to the library versus we were going to the library. If you've studied preterite and imperfect before, this kind of explanation might seem quite different at first, especially if you've been taught other rules. But by the end of the videos, you will see how this way of conceptualizing preterite and imperfect actually complements, simplifies, and explains all that you've been taught before. It's just that this approach is more of a general, conceptual approach, and it reflects how linguists think about viewpoint aspect. On the bright side, you won't have to memorize any rules or exceptions. You'll just have to learn one basic concept. It might seem tricky at first, but we'll give you lots of examples in the next videos so you can see just how the system works.